Hello, welcome to More Yoga with me, Emily. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you're doing well and ready for a little bit of something. Hopefully, it'll be, yoga. A little bit of strengthening, a little bit of stretching, a little bit of breathing. Um, it could be quite useful to have something extra to kneel up on today, whether you just double up your mat or have chip foam block. We're going to try and get both knees on it. So this can be a little bit narrow depending on how your legs naturally hang. But if you don't have it, don't worry about it. We can figure something out. And I think that's all I've got to say. Let's start lying down. If you're comfortable there, on your back or on your side even. And you might choose to have your legs outstretched, or maybe you bend your knees, in which case maybe you take your feet a little bit wider than your hips, maybe even mat width apart, and allow your knees to hang in toward each other. This way you don't have to use any muscular activation to keep the knees bent, or rather to keep the knees from falling out or in. And maybe take a little loop of your shoulder blades onto your back so that your heart and your chest can open a little bit more. And then when you feel ready to be still for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose. And exhale, sigh, air breath away. A couple more just like that. And then continue breathing however feels best today on your body, on your lungs. It could be in and out through your nose. It could be through the mouth. And then draw your focus a little bit more to your breath. Notice how it's flowing. Notice how it feels, how it sounds. Is it deep or shallow? Smooth or choppy? And try not to change it in any way. Just breathing your own, natural breath. In the last few moments here. And at the end of your next exhale, start to bring a little bit of movement back into your body. Whatever way feels best for you to wake up. Could be a little wiggle of your fingertips or toes, or a little rock of your head from side to side, or a full body morning stretch. And then draw your knees in toward your chest and take a little rock from side to side. And let's start with the legs arm length away from you, if that makes sense. So one hand on each knee and take a little rock from side to side. You might feel this deeper into the pelvis or lower down, maybe sacrum or SI joint. And then start to draw your knees toward you a little bit more now, moving the massage up to the top of the pelvis and the low back. And then draw your knees toward you even a little bit more. And then moving into mid back. Maybe even shoulders. Or shoulder blades, rather. And then pause in the center. Reach your legs up to the sky. Now, knees could be bent or straight. You could point and flex through the ankles or toes. You could reach your arms up to the sky as well and add some movement here through the wrists and fingers, anything that feels good, just to start to wake your body up. And then bend your knees again and bring your feet to the floor. So we're going to set up for a bridge pose. So feet hip width apart-ish, close enough into your bum that you can tickle your heels with your fingertips. And I always check this because it doesn't matter how many times I've done bridge pose. Sometimes my feet are too far away, sometimes they're too close. And so it's nice to just, double check once in a while. Once they're set up, then you can play with maybe bringing them in closer or further away. But we're going to do quite a few rounds of bridge pose here, so go easily on yourself. We'll build up, but take the time to rest if you need to rest. All right away here, make sure your knees aren't winging out to the side. Can you hug them towards the center line a little bit? So your knees might not, or certainly won't be touching, but they also don't want to be winging out to the side. And then wrap your shoulder blades onto your back. Arms could be extended along beside you, or you might bend your elbows. And then press your heels into the floor as you inhale. Slowly start to peel the pelvis and spine up and away. And we're just going to move in and out of bridge pose for this first set. So inhale to lift the pelvis up, and exhale to slowly lower it back down. So a few more of these on your own time, on your own breath. And you don't have to force the height necessarily. Again, we will be taking a few kicks at the can, if you will, today with bridge pose. So, go slowly. If you're ready to lift up all the way up to the top, then you're welcome to. But keep lifting and lowering. Trust me, you don't want to just pause at the top yet. All right, the next time that your hips come down, pause there. You might rest in stillness or take a little wiggle or windshield wiper of the knees. The benefit of pausing in stillness is that you don't have to set up your foundation again for the second set, but it's not too big of a deal. All right, let's set up for our second set, feet hip width apart again. And then this time, inhale, lift up into your bridge and pause there. Now you might keep your arms extended along behind you or along your sides. You might have bent elbows. Some of you might choose to walk onto the outside edge of the shoulders, lifting up even higher. You might clasp your hands behind your back, start getting, pretty deep back bend, but also a bit of a shoulder opener here or chest opener. And again, make sure those knees aren't winging out to the side. If they are, you're not working as much as you could be, getting these sort of isometric contractions. Now imagine that you're trying to push your feet away from you. See how that feels on your body? And then the opposite, almost dragging your heels toward you, and see how that feels. And then can you find somewhere in between? Last couple breaths here. Squeeze your bum at least a little bit. If your bum is loose and dangling, you're also not getting the same activation that I'm hoping for. All right. If your hands are clasped, unclasp them, and then slowly exhale, lower down to the floor. Whew, a couple breaths here to pause. One thing I should mention is that when you lift up into bridge, it's pretty important to keep your head still. It's not that it's dangerous, but if you start to turn your head or look around by moving your head, you can tweak the muscles in your neck, which no one wants. No one wants a sore neck. Okay, this time, walk your feet further forward, away from you, if that makes sense. Forward, backward, just walk your feet away from you. So you've got more of a less acute angle on the knee here. And then maybe you lift your toes, the soles of the feet up off the floor. And then now we're going to lift up into bridge. So inhale, lift up, and exhale, slowly lower back down. So with the feet further away, you might notice this a little bit more in the back of the legs and the hamstrings. And if you don't notice it too much, walk your feet even further away. And then lift your, come up onto the heels. And then you might really start to feel it. So you definitely won't be lifting up as high because you don't have the same leverage here with the feet underneath your knees. And it might be a little wobbly since we don't have the soles of the feet planted. So I really like robot arms here just to give myself a little bit more stability. Last couple, play with how far away those legs are, or your feet are rather, from you. Your legs are always the same distance away from you. Last couple breaths here. And then the next time that you come back down to the floor, pause, shake it out a little bit. Since we've already moved the legs, might as well take a nice big release. All right, last option can be hampered a little bit depending on how tight we are through our adductors, right, through the groin. But I'm going to get you to set up and at least try it. So bring the soles of the feet together. Now your knees don't have to wing out way out to the side. You can keep the knees lifted even. But I want you to think of pressing your feet toward each other here. And then as you inhale, press into the floor to lift up. And the knees might go down as you lift up. So it's a really hard squeeze on the glutes. And then come back down to the floor. Now, if for whatever reason this feels gnarly on your low back, or it's really tight on the hamstrings, go back to the first variation of bridge that we did, the basic one. Right? Inhale to lift up and exhale to lower down. And if you're doing the basic variation of bridge, which basic is fine, right? Just squeeze your bum a little bit more. Now, those of you who are working with me in this sort of butterfly variation of bridge, every time you lift up, think of squeezing the bum, maybe sending the knees down. So the knees will lift as we lower down, and they might go down as we lift up. So last couple here. This takes a lot of stability through the sacrum joint, where it joins with the pelvis, right? The SI joint. Or it doesn't take a lot of stability, it generates a lot of stability. Okay, last one. Press the feet toward each other, lift up. And then lower back down, shake out your legs. Little windshield wiper of the knees. And then draw your knees into your chest, take a little rock from side to side. Really massaging out the low back here. All right, some people might enjoy rocking and rolling up and down your spine here. Shoulder blades to sit bones to shoulder blades to sit bones. If that doesn't feel good, roll to one side and press yourself up. We'll meet on hands and knees. So eventually setting up here with knees underneath hips, toes can be tucked or untucked behind you, and then hands outer shoulder width apart or wider. And then as we inhale, lift the tailbone, hollow through your lower back, broaden through your collarbones. And then exhale, tuck your tailbone under, round through the spine. Really press the floor away from you. Inhale to lift the tailbone and come into cow. Exhale, tuck the tailbone and round into cat. So a few more of these undulations, and maybe this feels really good on your body after those spinal extensions. You might take a little wag of the tail from side to side here. Maybe bigger barrel rolls through the chest and shoulders. You could snake toward the floor. You could twist, really just going wherever you need to go for a couple more breaths. And then come back to center. All right. Give your hands a little shake. Excuse me for 1 second. I know you're supposed to cough into your elbow, but then I don't want it to be too loud into the microphone. Anyway, all these things we need to consider these days. All right, we're going to come up to full kneeling. So this is where it's a really good idea to bring a bit of extra padding underneath your knees if you'd like to. I'm just going to accordion my mat, kind of like this, and kneel up onto that. And then that gives me enough padding, but I can also set up my thighs as wide as I want to under my knees rather than using the chip foam block. If chip foam block is all you have, then that's fine too, or a padded towel. Anyway, come up to full kneeling, and then try to tuck all 10 toes behind you. But sometimes that means that the heels kind of wing out to the side. If that's the case, then just come to, heels more or less in line with your uh, leg bones rather than wing out to the side. So don't worry about tucking all the toes if they wing out to the side. Okay, squeeze the bum, belly into spine, shoulder blades on your back. What we're going to do is inhale here and then slowly lean back and then come back up. And that's all. You don't have to go super far. It can be easier by bringing the arms forward. You can make it harder by crossing your arms and bringing them to the elbows. And I don't expect a huge range of motion. Maybe you're really going for it. For me, this feels like, quite a bit of work. And it all sort of depends on how strong you are, how heavy you are through the torso, right? You might lifting more weight than other people. So don't worry about how far you're going or where I'm going. Squeeze the bum, belly into spine, long through the spine. We're just going to do a few more of these, right? Whether your arms are forward, whether they're crossed, or by your side even. Really squeeze the bum as you do this, though. And it's interesting, but you can feel your quads, right? The tops of thighs working here, but it's also a dynamic stretch for them. So it's a pretty fascinating way to work the lower body. Last one. All right, come on up. And then sit your hips down. We're coming to child's pose. You can unfold the mat if you want to. I'm going to take my knees wide with the toes together. You can have your knees together, whatever feels best on your body. You might stack your hands underneath your forehead or bring a pillow or block underneath your torso. If your hips are up quite high in the air, you could bring a pillow between your bum and the heels, and that can really bring some comfort and release. So a couple breaths here. And then slowly press yourself back up to hands and knees. A little wiggle or shake or cat and cow. And then, depending where you are on your mat, you might need to walk your hands forward or your knees back. But on your inhale, shift into your plank, either from your knees or from your toes. Couple breaths here. Squeeze your bum, squeeze the tops of the thighs, draw your lower ribs up to the sky, and press the floor away from you with your hands. As you exhale, come all the way down to the earth. A little wiggle of your hips from side to side once you get there, or even bend your knees, take a little reverse windshield wiper. All right. This is also a really great place to have something to bring under your head, just for a bit of lift. And then take your arms out to the side. So right arm out to the side, and then come onto the fingertips on that left hand, elbow sort of stacked over top of your wrist. All right. From here, I start to push into those left fingertips and roll open and over top of that right shoulder. Now go slowly. You might need to pause anywhere along the way. If it feels all right, maybe you come so the hips are stacked. You could bend that top knee and release that top foot behind you, kind of like a kickstand. It just helps the balance. And then maybe you drape the left arm behind your low back. If you know a deeper variation than this, you're welcome to go there. And if you're in, a very shallow variation, that's awesome too, right? Because we all have different muscular tightnesses, and especially through the chest and the shoulders. My goodness. Huge variation from one person to the other and from one side to the other. So last couple breaths here, just opening into the front of that right shoulder. And then as slowly as you came into it, I want you to start to unwind. So maybe the left hand comes back to the floor or the knee releases down. And then when you make your way onto your belly, can you try and pause there for a couple breaths without moving the right arm? So you just give the fascia on that right side a little bit of a chance to rebound. And then let's set up for the opposite side. So left arm goes out to the side, come onto the fingertips on the right hand, and then start to press into those right fingertips to roll yourself over top of the left shoulder. Now again, go gently and go slowly. You might need to stop sooner. Maybe you can go further. Maybe you bend the top knee and bring the foot behind you like a kickstand. And then if you wish, you could drape the right arm back behind you. Again, if you have a deeper variation that you know, feel free to go where you would like to go. If you're in a shallower variation, perfect. Thank you for listening to your body and not just going where I'm going. For me personally, and I try not to impose my own experience on yours, but I can go as deep from one side to the other, but this side is way tighter. Right. And again, it's always important to move within a pain-free range of motion, particularly when you're on your own. If you're working with a physiotherapist, then maybe it's different. Last breath here. All right, again, as slowly as you came into it, start to unwind. Eventually making your way back onto your belly. And again, can you pause there just for a couple breaths to allow that left arm to rebound? And then bring your hands to the floor. Underneath you, press yourself up to hands and knees again. A little wiggle, or shake, or cat and cow. All right, and then we're going to come up to kneeling again. So if you want to accordion the mat or kneel onto some extra padding, now is the time to do that. And then come up to your full kneeling position. Again, as many toes tucked as feels sort of natural behind you, belly button to spine. Squeeze the bum. Bring the palms now to your pelvis. Fingertips point down. Squeeze the elbows, the shoulder blades toward each other. And then lift your heart up to the sky. This might be where you want to stay here today. And this can be your camel pose. Fantastic. Really active through the lower body. Maybe you start to press your hips forward and lift your heart up to the sky. So we're going to get 3 kicks at the can, 3 tries for camel pose today. So start in a gentler variation, if you will, unless you know that 3 variations of a deeper or 3 tries of a 3 deeper variation is good. All right, inhale, come back up, and then hips down and back, child's pose for a couple breaths, just to release through the lumbar spine. You can see maybe where all that work in bridge pose really set us up nicely for camel. And then inhale, come back up to full kneeling. Now, if that made no sense to you, right, this position is essentially like bridge pose, right? We're just on our knees instead of on our backs. Okay, second set. Hug the legs toward each other, really squeeze the bum, belly button to spine. Maybe you do the same variation that we did with palms on the pelvis. Maybe you bring your palms into prayer, wrap your shoulder blades onto your back, lift through the heart, and then maybe you start to squeeze the shoulder blades toward each other and lift the heart up even more. Imagine that there's something behind your low back so that you have to lift up before you can go back. Really squeeze your bum. Maybe if you have a deeper variation, again, feel free to go where you would like to go. All right, and then inhale, come all the way back up. Exhale, release. into your child's pose. And then let's do this one last time. Inhale, come back up to your half kneeling. So lots of options, right? You could be here, you could be here. If the grab of the heel is something that you've never been able to get in camel, but always kind of have wanted to, then follow me, hug the legs towards each other, squeeze the bum. That same activity that we did first with the lean back, right? Lean back, lean back, lean back, lean back. And then maybe you can find your heels. Right, maintain the squeeze in the bum. Start to press the hips forward and open. Right, open through the chest. Wrap the shoulder blades toward each other. Really squeeze the bum so that you don't crank into your lower back. Wherever you need to be for your camel pose, last couple breaths. All right, and then inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, release into child's pose. I'm going to unaccordion my mat since that was the last round. And then press up enough just that you can roll over onto your back. And then when you're down on your back, hug your knees into your chest, take a little rock from side to side. Let's end with a twist. So take your right arm out to the side. Maybe you shift your hips right to start with. And then as you exhale, lower your knees to the left. As always, you can take any variation of twist that you'd like. You could have the knees stacked. You could take a single leg twist. You could take a cross leg twist. You could always bring a pillow or a block between your legs or underneath them. But try to be somewhere where you can be at ease. So release the tension with every exhale. Or at least release extra gripping with every exhale. And then on your inhale, return to center. Reset your pelvis and your spine. Maybe shift your hips left a little bit to start with. Left arm out to the side. Exhale, lower your knees to the right. And again, as gentle or as deep of a twist as you need on this side. You don't have to do the same variation from one side to the other. Sometimes you might hear a little click and then feel like a whole bunch of extra tension releases. That's a good thing, as long as it's pain-free. Last breath here. And on your inhale, return to center. Reset your pelvis and spine. And if there's anything else you feel like you need before your rest, please feel free to go there. A spinal flexion or extension, or maybe a happy baby. And then when you're ready, set up for your final rest. You could be flat on your back, legs bent or straight in Shavasana. You could rest on your side or child's pose or a seated meditation, right, wherever you need to go. And there's no rush to get there. But once you have found your pose of rest, for 3 breaths, inhale through your nose. And exhale, sigh your breath away. Couple more, just like that. And then let go of your breath control. And let go of any last muscle gripping or tension, particularly in your neck or your jaw. With each exhale, let your body melt a little bit deeper into the earth. And stay here longer if you can, 5 or 10 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me today. Namaste.